All right. So people are starting to file in. I see we already have some comments that have been left here. And as soon as I can see the first person, I'm going to click, I'm going to roll the introduction. Here we go. All right, Adi, you ready? Here we go.
I'm David C. Barnett, and you're tuned in to Small Business and Deal Making, the podcast, YouTube channel, and blog where I talk about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium sized businesses while controlling risk. So, if you're looking to take control of your future through buying a business one day, or if you already own a business and you're looking to grow or exit, you've come to the right place. I talk about interesting things, I talk to interesting people, and I answer your questions every week right here. So, be sure to hit like and be sure to hit subscribe, and let's get to it.
Are you a small business owner that's thinking about exiting your business now or in the next few years? My team and I are here to help with our unique zero commission program that we've been using since 2016. We can show you what your business is worth, prepare the package you'll need before you meet your first buyer, even run a confidential online advertising program for you just like business brokers do. And we'll coach you through the whole process, or you can hire us to manage it all for you, including coordinating your whole sell-side deal team. Head over to howtosellmyownbusiness.com to learn about how my team and I can help you get ready by watching a series of videos we prepared that explain each step in detail. And if you're ready or just curious to learn more, reach out to us and we'll get you started or schedule a call to answer your questions. I look forward to meeting you and learning more about your business. All right, today we have Avi Klevit joining us, who is a specialist in the world of creating systems inside small businesses. Adi, why don't you give us a little bit of your background? Tell us how you came to work with small business owners.
Absolutely. Well, first of all, David, thank you for having me on this live stream. I'm excited to talk to you about systems and processes, and I'm sure we're going to have a great conversation. So I started on this career about over 30 years ago as an industrial engineer, and it was all about process improvement, processes, systems. And I started my own business. I had several businesses before that, but I started my own business, this business, in 2011 with the purpose of helping entrepreneurs regain the freedom to create on their business and help empower their teams to do what they're supposed to be doing by creating, documenting, optimizing, and implementing processes and procedures.
Okay. And so just before we got underway, we actually had somebody pop in and ask a question, what kinds of businesses does the framework apply to that you've established and implement?
Sure, it's any kind of business. We work with business in the trades. We work with professional services, manufacturing, retail, you name it. It's any business. The common denominator is that they're fast-growing businesses that are lacking consistency, or if they are looking at exiting and they know that they need the systems in place in order to increase the value of the business. So any
Okay.
owner, any entrepreneur that feels that they want to have more freedom, they want to extract themselves from the business, whether to exit completely or just not have to be involved in the day-to-day, and the business is growing fast, there is chaos, lack of consistency, you are hiring new employees and you want to know how to train them. So it applies to any industry.
And was there something in particular that you ran into in your earlier career that made you realize this was an opportunity, that businesses needed this kind of help?
That's a very good question, because that's exactly what happened. When I decided to start my company, I started it as a general business strategy company, business success consulting group, helping businesses achieve their success. I'm a very good strategist. I can lead people. I can guide and give advice. And I'm definitely very good at that role as a trusted advisor. I already saw that before when I was working with many, many businesses, working in several international consulting companies. But I know that part of the success of any business is to have well-documented systems, have well-documented processes and procedures, have job descriptions in place, really explaining to the staff, the team, what they are supposed to be doing. That's the only way. And the knowledge transfer, because the knowledge that can be lost in an organization because somebody is leaving it can be very detrimental to the organization. So
Yeah.
part of my advice to my clients, I would say, okay, you need to document your processes. And they would say, yeah, we know we need to do that. And a week will go by. And yes, we know we need to do that. And another week and another week. And I can see that
And they would still know they needed to do it.
they knew they needed to do it, but they couldn't. I mean, yeah, it's on their list and they knew the importance, but they just didn't have anyone internally that can do it. And they did not have the time to do it. Or it's also, when people say, I don't have time, it's a symptom to other things. It might be, I don't know how to do it, or it's not important enough right now because I have to go sell, or I have to go put out that fire, or whatever it is. But I also knew that in order to sell more, in order to put out those fires, you need to have well-documented processes that are optimized. So then I asked one of my clients, well, what if I do it for you? Really? I said, yeah. So I did it. And it was just me at the time. And I did it. And it took a lot of time, but we created great processes that then they were able to use and expand. And as a result of that, they used it, expand, were able to hire and train in a really good way. So then I would go to the rest of my class and said, is that something that you need? Absolutely. So that how it happened. And then it evolved. Of course, I couldn't do it all myself. And I hired my team that is in existence today that are much better than I am in documenting processes. I'm very good at the high level, but they are very good into the details and documenting and extracting the information. So I built a whole team under me that are professionals at what they do, and then we were able to expand that service because I realized that's a niche that is very needed. And my team is wonderful, and we create wonderful products for our clients in terms of documentation of their processes and procedures, and bring that order and control into businesses.
Awesome. We've got people filing in here from all over the place. Victor just came in. He's over in Nottingham in the UK. He says he's given the program a like, and I would encourage everyone who's enjoying it so far to hit the like button because it helps to show the various platform algorithms that it's a really good show, and it will help bring other people into here and to see the recording afterwards. Adi, you have turned what you've learned into a framework with specific steps. In fact, I think you told me it was an 8-stage system. Can you give us the overview of what those 8 stages are?
Of course. So the first thing is the mindset. In order to engage upon a project like that, as the entrepreneur, as the visionary, you have to have the mindset why that processes are important, and really identify why are you going to document those processes. So that's step number one. And we can go over it a little bit more detail if you have questions on any of those, but I'm just going to go through them. So
Sure.
that's number one. And number two is you need to get buy-in from your team. So when we come into an organization, when we do start a project, we always get the buy-in, because it's about the people that are going to help us create those processes. And they need to know what is in it for them, in a way that they will feel that if they contribute, they are going to have a better job, their life is going to be better, there's going to be less stress, they will be able to accomplish more. Maybe they will be able to then take on themselves the promotion that they were looking for. Whatever it is, we have to get the buy-in from the team, and we have specific steps to follow to get that buy-in. Then after we do that, then we have our own methodology of how to document. That's the documentation phase. It starts with prioritizing and figuring out where we're going to start, process mapping, extracting information, using the different ways people learn, whether it's visual, audio, read and write, videos. We record videos. We also write instructions, and we write it in such a way that is very relatable, not complicated, and we know exactly the balance between too much information and not enough information. So that's what we do. That's the step of the documentation itself. Once that is done, also during the documentation, we also optimize. So you need to,
You don't want to automate and sort of codify a poor process.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
And I know AI, and we use it as well, internally. And it is the thing, it's the future, which is here. And we are definitely keeping top of knowledge on AI. So I'm definitely not saying, don't use AI, but I just also want to say that there are some things in terms of the optimization of the process that does not necessarily mean now we're going to use automation. It can be also just changing the sequence of something that can make things better. But we definitely also recommend on automation, and we have partners that can do the automation, and that is a key component. But you first of all have to identify the processes, and then we will work with you on optimizing them. That includes also automation. And then the next step is to roll it out to the team. But before we do that, we have to make sure that the processes are accessible. The accessibility of the processes are very important, because we don't write just for the sake of writing. We are writing it so it will be known to everyone. And that is why we use process documentation platforms in order to send it, to make sure that it is accessible for everyone. Now, the step after that is to roll it out to the team. So there's step-by-step checklist that we utilize in order to roll it out, all the way from having everybody access it on the platform, read it. We have a survey asking for feedback, and depends on the size of the organization. We have different levels on how we roll it out, in terms of rolling it out to the core team, rolling it out to the bigger team, etc. So that's something that that's the rollout phase. Now, the phase after that, which would be step number 6, is to make sure that those processes are being utilized in a day-to-day activities. So we have checklists, and we have training that we do with the team on how to utilize the processes in running the organization, in handling issues, in asking yourself whether it's a people problem or a process problem or both, and how to resolve it. So we have all of those. When we have that in place, we're actually creating that process-driven culture that is very important. Now, step number 7 is the regular review of processes and procedures, which is very important to have it in place, because that is what's going to allow us to know that those processes are basically allow us to monitor that the processes are being kept current and are being utilized and are being changed, so they're never obsolete. And then the last step number 8, is accountability. So we need to develop internal systems in order to I wouldn't want to use the word enforce, but to encourage using those processes and ensure that those processes are being used. And those are the accountability systems that we put in place to ensure that the processes are being followed by all.
This is great. I've got questions and comments about all the different steps almost. I want to put a couple comments here up on the screen though. Omar says hello. Hey Omar, how you doing?
Hello.
And Driver off the deck says, Dave, thanks for your content and guests. I learn a lot. Thank you very much, Driver. It's good to see you here. Let's start off with mindset, because in my past as a business broker and in helping to coach people to get their businesses sold and giving people advice and stuff, I often talk about systems. I have a program that I do for small business systems, and one of the things that I like to say as far as the mental framework or the mindset is that you have to develop an investment mentality. People will take money, they'll give it to some kind of investment advisor with the idea that the money will grow over time. And what I like to point out to people is if they invest some time into creating these processes and systems, what's going to happen is they're going to get a dividend from that investment in added time. And it just kind of snowballs and cascades. The more they invest in working on this stuff, the more it's going to liberate them from probably a lot of firefighting activity within the small business. Can you give some examples? You mentioned how people say, I don't have time. Can you give some examples of how you've helped people create time through setting up systems properly?
Of course. So, but I want to first of all address what you just said, which is so
Okay.
true. That's how we start, is we always ask, if we document the processes and procedures for you, what is the return on investment? And not just in general, where we'll have consistency or staff will know what to do. I mean, that's, of course, that is a return. But I want to hear, I'm just like you, it's all about numbers, right? So if now we have, for instance, in your technical department, we are going to have well-documented processes and procedures, how are we going to measure that it's actually worthwhile? Well, we're going to measure it, but no errors. The errors are going to go right now, let's say from 20% error to 0. Good. So that is a return on investment. How does it translate into money? Well, I don't have to send my technician back.
Yeah.
Translates to that many thousands of dollars or tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, whatever the business is and whatever it is, whatever is the measurement. So that is right there with the return on investment. So when you see that, then you have to ask yourself, what do I have to prioritize? And that's how you create also the time, because you create the importance. The other way to create time is like anything else, you have to start. You have to start at some point, and then it will be easier and easier and easier. It's kind of like working out. I don't have time to work out. Well, you know what? Let's start with 10 minutes a day. I do 10 minutes. Oh, this feels so good. Let me do this. Let me do 15 the next morning. Let me do 20. I mean, I'm not going to go to forever because it's not necessary, but I feel better. So maybe now I'm going to introduce a different type of exercise that is harder, that makes me feel better. And I do it more consistently. Maybe I'm doing it 4 times a week and now I'm going to do it 5 times a week, whatever it is. So it's the same thing. We apply the 90-minute rule. Let's start with 90 minutes a week. Look, if you cannot give me 90 minutes a week, then we have a problem. Because any business, maybe it's not the right time. So don't start, right? You have to commit to, if you cannot commit to 90 minutes a week where we do the heavy lifting, then afterwards, because that 90 minutes can translate into 10 hours of writing and processing, which I know, but that's how we start. That's how we create time, is those little increments that then become more and more and more.
Awesome. Where of those 8 stages you told us about, where do people get stuck the most? Like where do people seem to have the biggest problem?
It really depends. I mean, someone can go, okay, look, I'm a visionary. I don't care about processes. We already done a bit without processes. Processes not for me. Processes are my people. I don't care about implementing it. They can be stuck on step number 1. They can be stuck on step number 3. They don't know how to document. They don't have the time to document, and they stop the project in the middle. They can be stuck on the rollout, or they using it in day-to-day management, and they go back to their old habits. If somebody asks them a question, instead of saying, well, do we have a process for that? Let's read the process. What does it say? They start answering questions. Or they see somebody, they can be stuck in step number 8, where somebody is, they can see that somebody is not really using the processes, but they don't do the steps necessary in order to hold them accountable.
I've worked with people before who are in the process of documenting processes within their business, and they'll sometimes meet resistance from certain employees. And after they peel back and kind of learn why the employee is resisting, one of the common things I've heard is that employees become fearful if everything in their role is documented, because then they feel like they've kind of lost a bit of security in that role. They might say, "Wow, now anybody can come in and do my job because I've put all this stuff out there." What have you encountered this? What are some ways that you navigate around that?
Yes, we definitely encounter it. It's not a majority. Sometimes there is resistance from employees because they don't understand. So that's why we always start with good communication and finding out what benefits would they experience if they actually had well documented processes. So that's the first thing we do. We always do that because it's given everybody the benefit of the doubt that they want to help, they want to do good, they just need to understand, and then they usually participate. If not, then we uncover, and I could say this is probably, like, if I have to put it in percentage, maybe between 2 and 5%. But then there is bigger problems behind it. As a business owner, you probably know that there are problems with that employee. And sometimes our clients tell us, oh yeah, that's been a problematic employee and we don't want to rock the boat. So they know that they need to do something about it, but they're not doing something about it. So at that point, it becomes executive coaching, it becomes culture, it becomes all of that, because you have somebody there who is resisting your growth and you have to handle it however you're going to handle it.
Do you ever uncover, for example, somebody who, really isn't nearly as busy as they might have appeared to be in going
Absolutely.
through these processes? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I've experience with that where people, when they start to document everything, they'll realize, hey, this person that we thought had a lot on their plate really didn't have that much on their plate.
That's right. And sometimes people will say, oh my gosh, you're going to document it, and now it seems like I'm not doing anything, but I'm super busy. And I go like, yeah, I know, I understand that. I can see that maybe it's 1 or 2 processes, but it takes a long time. So how about if we figure out how to optimize it, or what you can do better? Or maybe that's the reality of it, that even though it's a simple process, we need you there doing it over and over. So it really depends on the situation.
Are there any problems that come up when people try to go through this too quickly?
Maybe not addressing everything, or overlooking things that can be improved. Yeah.
Okay. Do you ever have people go through the process of documenting procedures, but then, they don't use them? I've seen this many times where, people will do the work of implementing these processes. They'll create like the checklists and everything. And then people who have been doing these things for so often, for so long, they kind of feel like they know it all the time, and then they're not using the checklists. And this is when things start to creep in that, now we start missing some of the things that are on the lists.
Right. So that's why we always include a step of how to implement and what needs to be done in order to implement. So that is the number one. That is a part of our proven process, and we don't ignore that. So every time we finish documenting a department, we do a rollout and we teach the companies on how to do that. We also work, we do as much as we can to ensure that they are in the right mindset to continue the implementation.
Right. Okay.
It takes
For
discipline, and we definitely, so that's why there are companies that we are working with them for several years, and we're there every quarter reviewing the processes and making sure, if there are any questions, to make sure that they're being implemented. So it's the same thing as having a personal trainer. If you have the discipline and you are done working with a personal trainer, then great, then continue. And that's why we trust our clients to do, because we give them all the tools, but they have the choice also to continue working with us to ensure that we can actually walk them and be there for them for the entire journey.
can you address how company culture fits within this whole framework?
Hmm. The company culture, the main part of the company culture that is important here is accountability. You have to have a company culture of, and also innovation and growth. So if you have a company that is geared towards growth, geared towards innovation, geared towards accountability and holding everyone accountable to do the best they can and being able to report about it, they will also be very receptive to processes, and they will support processes, and they will want processes. If you don't have that culture and you have chaos, you have all hands all the time, people don't know exactly what they're doing, then they're not going to want to put order in. And that is also a culture that is not necessarily a healthy culture. And that's what we're going to be.
Okay. What but when we talk about culture and we talk about changing culture, sometimes we also get into the turnover and employees coming and going. Can you talk about what kind of impact you've seen proper systematization have on turnover within a business?
Yes. So when you have, first of all, you're ensuring that the new employees are onboarded correctly and are trained correctly. So you don't have that. You decrease the churn at the beginning, where you have the turnover when somebody comes, you are hired them for a few months, they don't understand what they are doing and they leave. So that's for sure.
Yeah.
And then also you are eliminating frustrations that happen over and over, frustrations within existing employees about broken processes or processes that don't work, which lead to dissatisfaction. It also helps in career path, believe it or not, because once you understand what a person is doing and they're doing it efficiently, you can also see who shines in their position, who does it really well, and it can open a door to promote those people.
Right. Okay. Great. Um, we have got a bunch more people that are piling in here. We have Kevin, who's in Central Florida, I believe, says good afternoon. Hi, Kevin. Good to see you. And we've also got Victor, who has a question. He says, how does this fit within the idea of Kaizen or continuous improvement?
Well, of course, that's why you have always, when you use the processes in day to day management, if there is an issue, then you solve it by looking at it. Is it a people problem or a process problem? And if it is a process, or both, And the majority of time, it's a process problem or both. And that's where continuous improvement comes into play. So you don't wait until once a year or something. You handle it right away as it is happening. And that is the continuous improvement.
Yeah, I don't know if you could even implement some kind of continuous improvement idea if you didn't have some kind of system to refer to. I mean, how would you benchmark yourself
Exactly. That's exactly
if you
right.
were getting better or not, right? Um, a lot of people who are watching this either today or will have a small business with 5 to 20 employees. For a small business like that, is there a certain area of the business that you see common as the most important place to start this systematization? Are there certain key functions that are more important than others?
It really depends on the business and what they do. So the question that I would like to that I always ask is what area of that business, if you had well documented processes and procedures, will get you the biggest return on investment. And that's what
Okay.
you have to answer. So whether it's your sales, your operations, I'll be actually curious. So if we have listeners right now that have a small business, just put in the chat or give us a comment in terms of like what is your area. I mean, I would be interested. From my experience, it's always either sales or operations. Sometimes it's HR. If you are hiring, if you're in a growth spurt and you have to hire, that could be as well. But business development is another one. It really depends on where the business is at, what kind of business, and what are they doing. But it's the question of like, if you had well documented processes and procedures, which area will get you the biggest return on investment?
Yeah, and that either has to do with the fact that you're not maybe bringing in the revenue you should be for the sales efforts, and maybe there's some kind of problem there with follow-up or tracking leads or what have you, or your costs are out of control, as you mentioned earlier, because you've got technicians always going out to repair things that weren't done right the first time because you're not executing properly. So it's either reaching for more revenue or some kind of loss avoidance through
Right. And
fixing
it's also,
processes.
look, it can also be knowledge transfer. You might have an employee that has been with the business for so long, or maybe you bought a business and that employee was there, but nothing is documented. If you lose that employee, it's going to be a problem. It might be that maybe you want to scale and you know that you need, as the visionary, as the entrepreneur, as the founder, you need more time. You want your freedom. So you need to figure out what are the hats that you're wearing that you would like to pass to somebody else and document that part. So that can also be a factor.
Can you share a story of a big change or turnaround in activity that happened as a result of this, of implementing systems?
Yeah. So we were working with a contractor that he really wanted to grow his company, but he was stuck because he was still the estimator and he was never able to actually pass that hat to somebody else. It just wasn't happening because every time he tried, the sales went down. And he couldn't really explain that X factor. Like, what is it that he actually do that he can teach others to do? So what we did is we came in there and we assessed the estimating process. We created a workflow for estimating and we started and we identified what it is, and then we started to extract the information from him on how things are being done, asking a lot of questions, comparing it to other companies that we have worked with to see what is missing. And we created a beautiful estimating process, and we then identified what could be documented with his CRM and what could be delegated to somebody else, like an assistant or an assistant estimator or a junior estimator. And we did that. So that frees so many hours. And then
Mm.
we figured out, like, we continued with that process and we figured out how to document and how to create the sales process itself. And then we were able to hire an actual estimator. So that was their role, is to estimate and sell. And the business almost tripled because of that, because the owner stopped being the bottleneck and the owner also had the time to spend with family and expand the business and look at other business arms and options.
Now, in this particular case, do you find an owner like that because they're so in the weeds with doing the particular work? Do you find that these people often can't even articulate what they're doing? Like you really have to probe and figure out, why did you choose this instead of this? Why do you say it has to be done this way instead of this way? Like, I find that people are so in the work that, and maybe they lack the terminology or the language, but it's when you ask somebody, can you document this by writing down the steps, that it will never be complete because they just don't look at it the way someone who isn't as experienced or familiar would see it.
Absolutely. And it's a matter of asking the right questions, because sometimes we do things and we are convinced, oh, there's no way of explaining it. It's just me. That's the way I am. But it can't be, because otherwise businesses would not exist. Otherwise, big companies would not exist. So
I
that
love that. Yeah. And this is the example I use when people say I can't teach it. I'll say, well, how do pilots learn how to fly, Boeing 747s? Like that's complicated and it's been broken down.
Yeah, and
And
the
you
reason
put,
why they can't explain is because they probably can't explain it to themselves either. So it all looks
right.
like this big mass of knowledge that is not broken down. So our role, the consultant, that's how we extract the knowledge, is to break it down into actions and ask the right questions. And we ask that question on the spot, right? Like ask the question so we can elicit the reason behind things. We always ask the why behind things. What are the best practices? We look for those, oh, we're doing it because it was always been done that way, because then we don't have a reason behind it or a
Mm.
compelling reason, and we can break it apart and see, okay, there is a reason why it's being done. What is it? Oh, it's A, B, and C. Okay, so let's leave A, B, and C, but be very careful. Like let's test and see if X, Y, Z can be done differently, or maybe it's not necessary. And if you don't know why you're doing it, before you, I mean, we're not going to recommend to remove something if the business is successful, but it is opening the door to look at it and see if it is really truly necessary and successful.
Oh, this is great. This is great. You mentioned earlier tools. So there's different software tools out there for putting processes, procedures, yeah, and are there any favorites of yours, or do you really look sometimes for different solutions for different kinds of businesses?
We look for different solutions. We work with several softwares, but we look for the solution that works for the client. So that's why it's no one size fits all. So I can't tell you, oh, use this or use that. It's really looking at what the client has and what they need, and then offer that solution. And that's one thing that we also do. We give a 30-minute free consultation. And that's part of what comes out of that consultation, is what are the right tools for you? Because otherwise it would be just irresponsible for me to just say, oh yeah, use this. And then you go and use it and you go, it didn't really work. I go like, okay, well, tell me more about your business. So it's more bespoke, it's more specific to the business, but we need to ask questions and know exactly what is going on to recommend the tools.
There, one of the comments that I'll see sometimes on social media, in the chit chat about small businesses, people will say things like, "Oh, just, you know, hire a virtual assistant who will write SOPs for all of your processes. Like it's easy as doing it that way." Do you see some of this kind of like sort of simple solution advice given? You want to comment on whether some of those ideas are valid or not?
There is probably a certain degree that somebody can do it. It's not like we invented the way to do it. However, we have it in such a way that we have professional writers that write it. We know exactly what to ask. We create the final product that you can use, and we do it in a timely manner. And we also ask for best practices, for whys, and look for optimization. So we are professionals, and that's what we do.
Is there such a thing as too much systematization or too much rigidity within processes?
I think so. We have to really be aware of, and that's what part of what we do, is that we are aware of where to let go and where to leave room for judgment, and where do we have to document. And that's another thing. Like you asked me before, okay, so I can just hire a VA that can do it for me. Well, we don't just document instructions on a certain software. Okay, so no, it's not like, okay, let's document how to enter a new customer into QuickBooks. That's not what it is about. That you can do. You can also have something like Scribe where you can run it through your computer and then the software can spit out the instructions, which is great. Here we are looking at best practices, at challenging best practices and understanding why you're doing it and is there a better way to do it? Because that's another thing is the word automation is being thrown out there. Oh yeah, I want to automate, but in order for you to automate, we have to understand what stands behind your current process, and that takes a strategic partner to understand that.
Yeah. And I would imagine, one of the advantages you have is that you've seen so many other cases that might be similar to someone's situation, and you've seen other possible solutions. So you you'd be a little bit ahead in the thinking because you already have a template in your mind of what it could look like.
That's exactly right. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, for someone who's buying a business, like if I'm looking at a business to buy, um, what kinds of things should I be looking for that would indicate that this has been done well within a business? If someone says, "Oh yeah, we're all documented. We have, an operations guide." Like how would I know if it was really well done or not?
Good. So I would ask for, I would ask to see the map of all the processes, like what departments exist. Show me the map of the processes, because then I would like to see the flow from beginning to end. And then I would like to see the actual documentation and go through it and read it and ask when was the last done, who did it, who wrote it, is the person still there, when was the last time it's used. When you onboard a new employee, how do you onboard them, how do you teach them, how do you train them, and do your due diligence. Read the processes and follow and interview the people that wrote it or the positions. Make sure that it's actually everything is covered and ask the questions. In terms of, is there anything missing? Is there anything here that wasn't documented? Do you want to make sure that 80% of your results, that how you get 80% of the results you want to get is actually those steps are being documented. I know sometimes you say, okay, document 20% of the steps in order to get 80% of the result. I don't know if it's always 20%, but whatever it is, you want to make sure the majority of the results are documented, like how to get specific products and results are documented. And look at it. When was it written? What's the quality of it? Ask questions, read it and ask questions.
Okay. Um, and who ideally is the kind of business owner that you like to work with when you're doing a project like this?
We work with fast growing companies that are lacking consistency. So they have to already be in an established business, because if not, they need to do marketing and get new clients, new patients, new customers, whatever, whomever you're servicing. And once that is done and you have a going operation, then it's time for us to come in and create your system, so then you can start the cycle again and get more clients, more customers, etc.
So there has to be sort of the minimum barrier of, yes, this is an economically viable enterprise. You're able to make money. I guess ideally, if they can make money even with some of the problems that might come from a lack of documentation, it means that they're probably going to improve themselves through this
That's
process.
absolutely correct, because that's we all have a process. There is no process. Even how you wake up in the morning and make your coffee is a process. So, and businesses tend to figure out their processes, and then they hit some bottlenecks, or they want to grow, or they want to now hire more, and they want to make sure it's being trained, or they are just want to get out. The founder wants to get out of the business. Then it's time to document.
This has been a great conversation.
Absolutely.
Would you like to share where people can find you online, Adi, if they'd like to have a
Absolutely.
conversation with you?
Yes. So if you're online right now, because you're listening to us, so definitely LinkedIn we're on all platforms, but LinkedIn is the strongest one. So go ahead and look at my profile, Avi Klevit. There is a way there to schedule a free consultation. As I said, I'd be happy to audit your systems that you have right now and give you advice of what you can do immediately to improve. So schedule a call with me and I'll be happy to go over that with you. So again, it's my name, Avi Klevit, at LinkedIn. Look me up in LinkedIn. You can call us or text us at 503-662-2911 to schedule a time. Our website, bizsuccesscg.com. So BIZ, success spelled out, CG for consulting group.com. and you can book a call. There's definitely plenty of ways to get a hold of us.
I will, once we're done here, I'll update the description of the YouTube video with the business website and your LinkedIn profile too, so people can find it easily.
Absolutely.
This has been great. Thank you so much. I have, oh, Jesse says, every time I'm about to ask a question, you answer it as I'm typing it out. Ha ha ha. That's because I can read your mind, Jesse.
That's right.
Something I've been working on. It's a new skill. All right.
Excellent
All
skill
right.
to have.
All right, everyone. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
So, how can you learn more about buying, selling, financing, and managing small and medium sized businesses? Easy. Go over to my blog site, davidcbarnett.com, where you can learn more about me and how I work with my clients. You can learn more about my books and courses that I've prepared for you. You can find out how to subscribe to my email list, the YouTube playlists, and more. There's literally hundreds of hours of content there, all for free, and I'd love for you to be my guest. Special thanks go to Mark Willis at Lake Growth Financial, today's video sponsor. Mark helps people better manage their personal and business finances through the Bank on Yourself insurance strategy. This is something I've done personally and I've seen others use it successfully for years. Go to newbankingsolution.com to find all the interviews I've done with Mark and learn more about the advantages of these programs. While there, sign up for a free consultation to learn what this solution might look like for you.